And I call the member for Durack with pleasure.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. May I take this opportunity to thank the opposition for finally coming to their senses and to the table and showing bipartisan support for the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement. And for a minute there I thought that Andrew Robb had no role whatsoever, our Trade Minister, in the negotiation of the ChAFTA agreement. I thought it was all credit to Penny Wong. But anyway, so it's so good that they've finally come to their senses. We on this side, we know that you have now done the right thing, supporting Australian jobs and Australia's future, our children's future, our grandchildren's future, by leaving the politics at the door, and I congratulate the Labor Party for that. I'm thrilled to rise today to speak about the Customs Amendment China-Australia Free Trade Agreement Implementation Bill 2015, because this will be an immeasurable benefit to my electorate of Durack, not just for today or tomorrow, but for many years to come. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is a hallmark day in Australia's history. This deal, this agreement, ChAFTA as we call it, will be of unquantifiable value to Australia's economy. Chinese tariffs on key exports such as beef, dairy, horticulture, wine and coal will be slashed. We will see improved trade opportunities for a whole raft of services in education, hospitality, aged care services, tourism, also an improvement for the pharmaceutical industry, all of which will service the largest middle class in the world. Independent economic modelling around the ChAFTA agreement, together with the Japanese and the Korean free trade agreements, will add an additional $24 billion to the Australian economy between 2016 to 2035. Now we know, and we also know that those opposite also know, that increased exports and cheaper exports will create more Australian jobs. It will allow Australian businesses to hire more workers. I want to take this opportunity now to put on record and thank the Minister for Trade, Andrew Robb, for his tireless work on negotiating this excellent deal. This is truly an historic day in Australia's young history. The work Minister Robb has done should be applauded, and I'm pleased that he's getting some credit, though not a lot, from the other side. Along with the free trade agreement signed by Korea and Japan since coming to office just over 2 years ago, these 3 free trade agreements are forecast to create some 7,900 net jobs next year and will peak at over 14,500 jobs in 2020 before returning to be over 5,400 jobs higher in 2035 than we would have otherwise have had but for these 3 free trade agreements. Increased economic activity as a result of these free trade agreements will also encourage higher incomes, with real wages forecast to be over 0.5% higher by 2035 as a result of the benefits of these free trade agreements. This increased economic activity is welcome news to the people of Durack, as higher incomes and lower prices will benefit these hard-working regional people. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Chinese Free Trade Agreement will be of great benefit to my large and diverse electorate of Durack. The last agricultural census in 2011 illustrated there were about 1 million head of cattle in Durack. In 2013-14, total beef exports from Durack, both live export and beef produce, was worth approximately $215 million. Needless to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, this deal will have enormous benefit to my pastoralists in Durack, across the Pilbara, the Kimberley, the Midwest and the Gascoyne regions. Due to ChAFTA, opportunities for Durack cattle producers are limitless. However, Deputy Speaker, it's not only pastoralists who are the ones that are going to benefit from this agreement in Durack. The largest grower and processor of chia seeds in the world and one of the largest exporters in the world, the Chia Company, is just one business which is set to flourish under this agreement. Now, for those who are listening and don't know, chia is a superfood. For those wondering, it's a great source of fibre, protein and omega-3. And one other interesting little stat is that the Aztecs really liked it back in the 1500s because it was one of their staple foods. So for those of you who aren't on chia seeds, you should be on it very soon. Based just outside of Kununurra, the Chia company have tried to get into the Chinese market for years and will no doubt be ecstatic on hearing the news about the passing of this legislation very shortly. I have no doubt that they've been able to run through all the hoops for several years trying to get into the Chinese market, and this agreement will help facilitate them to get into that market. After 4 years of trying to jump through all the hoops but not striking gold, they expect that their trade with China will turn over $1 million in the first 12 months of entering that market. This is just one example of the great news which ChAFTA has delivered. I'd like to just mention, Deputy Speaker, another great example in the Midwest, in the Durack, which I know of the Geraldton Fisheries Co-op. The Geraldton Fisheries Co-op is the largest live rock lobster exporter in the world, and I know that they will welcome this opportunity as they'll be able to directly export into China, benefiting all of those crayfishermen within my vast electorate of Durack. Deputy Speaker, only this side of the chamber understands how to live sustainably whilst at the same time growing the Australian economy. In 2004, under the Howard government, the Parliament voted the Australia-US Free Trade Agreement into law. At the time, it was Australia's largest ever bilateral trade deal with the largest world economy. Today, as I stand here, the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement will become this country's biggest ever bilateral trade deal with our biggest trading partner. This deal represents the first stage of what promises to be one of our most successful economic relationships. This deal, along with the other free trade agreements, illustrates that this coalition government can deliver a strong and prosperous economy for a safe and secure Australia. It's deals like this that have led to Australia's impeccable record of 24 years of continuous growth. Deputy Speaker, this is indeed a significant day in Australia's history. The China Free Trade Agreement will be the largest bilateral trade deal on record. The agreement's benefit will be enormous to the Durack pastoralists, also horticultural businesses in Durack, and also for other parts of Western Australia, including the dairy farmers and also the wine industry. And this will increase Australia's economic pie while increasing real wages at the same time. This agreement has the Liberal Party fingerprints all over it, and I again congratulate the Minister for Trade for his work in securing this deal. This deal has been endorsed by a number of senior figures in the community, including our Labor icons like Bob Hawke and Kevin Rudd and Martin Ferguson, and I'm sure they're delighted with the way we are progressing with this legislation now, finally. Fortescue Metals, the National Farmers Federation, the Australian Dairy Farmers and the Export Council of Australia are all among the many businesses and people who have publicly showed their support for the agreement, and I'm sure they're charging a glass this evening as well. Growing Australia's economy and creating jobs are two things I'm very proud that this government has achieved since coming to office only 2 short years ago. And I commend this bill to the House.